wonder how trailblazing leaders sense at scale, evolve to innovate, and align the actions in this increasingly digital world? Welcome to the Exploring Leaders podcast. The experienced team at Degosian interviews leaders from around the world for insights and inspiration on how to lead in the digital age. In this episode, Degosian founder Lizalette Engstam, who is also an independent board chair and director, researcher, author, and advisor, asks the questions.
Welcome, Charlotta Nilsson. We're finally here, and I'm delighted to have you guest the podcast. So for those who don't possibly know you, can you share a bit around what has taken you to where you are today?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's such a lovely chance to chat with you, so I really appreciate that. So what got me here? I would say that my curiosity and my love for technology and business. It wasn't that obvious from the beginning to go that way, but apparently I'm made for it. It's been what I really love doing.
Can you share with us a bit, what are your current engagements? What
Yes.
are you spending your time on today?
Yes. So my current role is Chief Operating Officer at Paradox Interactive. We make strategy games, and especially in a historical setting. Fantastic company, the entrepreneurship and the love for the customer. It's amazing. That's something many other companies should try to bring on. I'm also on 3 boards. So I'm on Nordnet as a board member. I'm also a board member at Industrifonden, and I'm also a board member at Advisens, working with compliance and cybersecurity.
And the Nordnet is a bank.
Yes.
And Industrifonden is basically a governmental investor. Is that right?
So it's a foundation, meaning that it was governmental money starting it, but as any foundation, it has a life of its own. And we invest in early stages of companies with also the purpose, besides making good money, the purpose is also to make Sweden better when it comes to a place for growing business. So it's really nice to be able to work with that twofold engagement.
So it's a fantastic portfolio, actually, because it keeps you both in large financial services, quite regulated, you're in gaming, you're in investments, you have quite a broad portfolio. And it's a fantastic way for them to gather information from you. How do you keep yourself updated?
Of course, that takes some time. But since I love learning, that helped a lot. But you are onto something super important that I think people underestimate, the importance of actually keeping yourself updated, especially now when technology and other things are moving so fast. It takes some serious work to stay updated. But the benefit with being in many different areas is, of course, the cross-pollination. So you do some learning in one area, and that's in most cases applicable also in other areas. Not without adjustment, but there is a lot of learning you do that is relevant in all areas.
And if I start now a bit focused here just on your COO job first, what's most exciting with that job?
Our customer. So our players, our fans. And it's obvious when you're in the gaming industry maybe, but when you compare to more business to business, you might ask your customer what they want. We put a lot of effort in to understand our customer and what they love and not love. And with more consumer product as we have, of course, there is as many opinions as there are customers. Yeah. So it's not easy, but there is so many ways that I would say that many regular companies are not trying out. Simple things are user research, but you can have forums where you let your customer express their interest. We also, as employees, spend a lot of time playing our games to have the real customer experience as well.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a lot of love around this, and the gaming industry, for people that's not been there, is an extremely entrepreneurial area. Your product should not only be done and you should have your quality and you should handle your budget, but it should be fun. A lunch you need to eat, even if it's not the best restaurant, but you don't need a game. So you need to really be over the top when it comes to the experience. And that love creates an iterative process to come up with ideas. You try things, you try new business model, you try platforms, etc. And when you do that, it creates a very entrepreneurial sort of mindset. So I think that's something that other companies would envy if they knew about it. On the other hand, of course, when you are in that mindset, it's so easy to think that you need to invent all the wheels. So of course, there are things the gaming industry can copy, and this problem is already solved. You just use this. Of course, there is many interesting things in this area.
And I didn't ask you too much about your background, but maybe you can say something about your background and what you've done before your COO role.
Yes. So I've been having many different roles. I mentioned that technology and business has been in the area. I've been working in mainly technology companies, but with different kind of business model and different sizes and different industries. So I've been in consulting, I've been in telco, I've been in deep tech businesses, etc. And I've been in IT service area as well. So I span over many different areas. I would claim again that my curiosity get me into the unproven or untouched lands. And I love to be in the area where there is new technology or there is these shifts that are changing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes I say that if you're in technology, you actually don't sell technology, you sell change. You sell experiences and change, and you seem to really embody that.
And that's true. There are so many new things coming, and I think people have seen it over the decades. If we look back how the industry or any industry was just 20 years ago, it's hard to recognize it's the same. There has been so many changes, as you say. And I think you're onto something super important as well, that often people think that the technology is the challenge. Meanwhile, it's actually usually the simpler things. Still, you need to know the technology to be able to apply it and optimize it. But the hard part is usually the people, the decision, and getting everyone aligned. So independently of what kind of interesting project you put together, in the end, it's to get the people to agree and the customer to express what they want. Or so it's, as you say, technology is not only technology, even though it's often understood that way.
It is. So one of the things that I would say most companies are now starting to become technology companies. They're coming from different angles. But I thought it would be very interesting to hear what your perspective is on the difference on actually developing digital products versus developing digital services. And digitizing at all. So you can take us through some
this is such a large area. So I hope you have a few days then we can come to a good conclusion. But I think one of the angles here that often are misunderstood is that with different kind of, if you go for a product or if you go for a service, you would usually have a different behavior from your customer. The buying behavior, you usually have another business model if you have a monthly fee that you pay compared to that you buy your product and you're happy with it. And many people think that this is just the customer experience and the sort of how the money comes in. But you also need to optimize your product and also the team around it, how you then scale your business, because it will, different ways will apply in this. So I think that there is no one way to do a service. There are many ways to do a service, but I think that's underestimated, I think, to really understand what it means for the customer, that you interact with your customer during a longer time, meaning that you also need to be able to service your customer in a sort of long-term perspective. Meanwhile, a product, they take it and maybe they let you know if they have a problem with it, but otherwise it's a little bit more on a standalone and best of luck. So with the service that I think also open up a sort of new customers or new markets, because you can have another buying behavior. And I think that's why people are eager to go that way. The maintenance of the product, if you manage to have a standard platform in the middle, of course, that could be easier or save a lot of time, so you can do savings as well. But I think you need to focus even more on the customer experience, because you serve them throughout a longer period. And as most of people using different services today, they see that the service is not looking the same now compared to a few years ago or something. It's always trying to over-deliver and be even better.
You can check out more hints and tips in the blog post covering this podcast episode of Exploring Leaders at the Degoshen blog, which you can find at degoshen.com.
Sure.
Yeah. And now we stand again in front of a quite dramatic shift for most companies and most businesses. And I'm thinking obviously of AI and how to handle that. And can you share with us a bit on how you handle it, both in your operational role? How do you get your teams on board, and are there fears? And also when you, after that, when you can contrast it a bit, sitting on the boards, how do you encourage companies to move forward in this quite new and probably changing at the speed we haven't seen before?
So let me first start with, I had the pleasure to work with AI already at 93. It was so limited compared to what we see today. I could never have thought this was possible. Just getting an AI tool at that point to be able to read text and read it up for you or something simple like that, I never thought it would be possible. I could dream that what if they could do this. But if you look at AI services today, they are in many ways very similar to back then, but you have better computing power, you have better access to data, so you can really train things. So it's really amazing, and I think we are just in the start of how AI will develop. In this creative industry, this has been a very touchy subject. You probably recall the voices in Hollywood regarding voice actors and what it means that someone can copy your voice and use it. Yeah. And I think this is, of course, a backside, that some job might be easier to copy for new tools. So it is not without challenges, I would say, this challenge or this new technology. But it's also come with a lot of opportunities, because you can do things that you didn't do in the past. And I think we, of course, with fear, people tend to focus on, will they replace me? Yeah. But where we should seek opportunities is, of course, where we can do things that's not possible to do with humans. So I think we sometimes look at in the wrong end of things. Working with this in the company, we have done that for a number of years now. And of course, it is with some sensitive discussions. People are afraid. And we have said that if we don't explore this and try out, because we are in a very explorative phase, others will. So we are in, like I think many others feel, a little bit forced to step into this, because either we are onto this or not. But similar to when, if we go back in time, similar when internet showed up and we started using emails and stuff. From the beginning, everyone thought, oh my God, now we don't need shops, we will do everything electronic. It will totally change everything. But in the end, as we have seen, of course, it has exploded in many ways, but in the same time, it hasn't changed everything and not in the always in the way we think it will. But I think where we will get biggest changes is not necessarily in the technology. It's more on sort of the buying behavior from customer and how they what they expect from a service. If information is available directly under your fingertips, of course that will change that people might not pay for information as we have done in the past. Maybe you use the consulting firm to do a very advanced report or something. Maybe you can do that yourself. So of course that will change the buying behavior, but there will be other things people want to have. And one of the things that I see is that, let's say that I can make a game half the time with these new tools. Of course, we are looking for that and seeing what we can do smarter and more efficient and stuff. But if one in the industry choose to do a twice as cool product, it will be really hard to stay on the normal level. So I think it, again, as usually when there is new power tools out there, it will be power race on who can do the best of this or the best experience. So when it comes to the game industry, I actually think that will push the border of what you can explore and experience. So let's say that all our games could be translated all languages. Today we choose a few, and it's a hustle for us to make sure that whenever we do an update, we make sure it's updated in all languages as well. But what if we could have a tool that translates it on the fly?
Yeah.
So we don't have to think of it. It's done when you set your choices, you say, I want to have this language, and then it's translating actually as you go. So there can be a number of really cool things that we are not able to do today, or we choose to not do today because it's too costly. So I think there is really cool things there, and I think it again will be a sort of a power race to do more things. Of course, you can hold back and say that, okay, this level that we have today is enough, and now we just do it with robotics or AIs. But I think we always strive for something new and something even better as consumer, and that will continue this race.
Yeah. And if you now move yourself from your operational role and to your board roles, how do you feel that the discussion is going in the boards? Are board members insightful? Are they trying themselves? Do you feel that there's opportunity for a little improvement on that side? And if so, what do you think they should do?
I think AI together with technology is sometimes underestimated in board. I think there is committees for everything, revision, risks, etc. It's not all company having technology or IT board or committees. And with that, I think it's when I studied physics back in time, it was like an expertise area. Now I actually think everyone needs to know and understand technology to a deeper level. It's not just how things function, but actually understand technology, because it's coming into everything. You can't even cook food without knowing this. So I think that's a big change in society that you actually need to know. And of course, AI can be a very helpful tool to read up on things and get easier to the knowledge you need. So I think technology and understanding the technology, and of course, I don't believe in technology for its own sake. But if you don't know the alternative you have and the bottlenecks and the benefits and the drawbacks, because there is always a drawback, it's really hard to give the guidance of how you should grow the company, what risk you should take, etc. So I think there is a combination with technology and how that drives the change in society. And I think some people that are thinking that technology for others or for the experts, I think they miss how the changes are coming and how that's affecting. So I think the understanding and diving deeper is important. And of course, if you only look at that lack of people in our education in STEM, both men and female, men and women, I would say that, of course, we would benefit if we would have more having deeper knowledge into it. But I would say everyone I met are interested. When it comes to AI, people are trying to get into it. So I would not say that anyone feel that this will blow over. I think everyone is convinced at this time, because it's been a few ups and downs during the years, that this is for real. But again, I think it's sometimes then focused a little bit too much on, okay, what will that change here and now? Can we replace a number of people in the work staff, instead of thinking what business opportunity lies there and how can we then adjust to that?
And most boards are more geared, are more required from the short-term stand to look at all of the risks compared to the opportunities. So how do you find that boards can better balance that discussion?
Ooh, I think that's a very good question. I'm not sure I have the best answer, but I think when you have a very well-functioning board, you actually have that as a sounding board for the management. So the management team both feel the trust, and also it's possible, and that is setting, of course, high requirements on each board member as well, to have the trust and also to be vulnerable about what we know and what we don't know, and be able to test different ideas. Being CEO sometimes may be very lonely, and be able to have people where you can go and say, oh, our plan is going this direction, but this recently happened. We are thinking maybe we should take another route to get to our goals. What about this? And have a really creative discussion with many more people that have insight in other industries or other, because even though many things that happen now today is unique, as you say, we have been through a number of changes. So also the experience, how we dealt with changes, or what was benefit or what was unnecessary experience. There is a lot of those experiences that can be brought into this.
Yeah. And if you were to say how boards can then in some ways put in place things to actually get the company and the leaders to see things earlier, explore things, how do you see that? Are there things that boards are missing out on that they could put in place?
Probably thinking that management work with this every day, taking 1,000 decisions on a daily basis on different things. Of course, it will be a different thing compared to be on the board. So I think it's, if you think that the board should just control the management, I think that is a very difficult task.
To get even more value out of the podcast series Exploring Leaders, you can find everything from research reports to advice and courses at the Degocian website, which you can find at degocian.com.
So really utilizing the board with the knowledge they bring in. But of course, there can be done things together, exploring new areas, being on the race of being on top of what's the latest, what's happening. Because in the AI industry, or in the industry with AI now, I would say that it's actually hard to choose a product that you build something on top of. Because you don't know if tomorrow there will be a better product out there. I can imagine that there is a lot of company out there sort of a little bit waiting for things to stabilize, so you could make your choices or you can make your moves. And just to be part and updated on that, I think it is almost a full-time job. But coming back then to the board and management, I think there is super important to give management guidance on the risk level you are prepared to take. Because if you say that you need to keep your existing business as a maximum speed, and then you're going to innovate in a disruptive way, it will be really hard for them to find a way to do it. So a guidance on sort of what risk level should you take when it comes to new tools. We have a number of regulations you might break. In some areas, it's more regulated than other. And to give that clear guidance to management, I think that can free up some anxiety around what can be done and not done, etc. And of course, it's really a hard decision, but I think that's setting the risk level, not in general, but in very specific areas. How far are we willing to push things in this area? How far are we willing to push things in other areas?
And I think you're on to a point where some boards work to avoid risk, but in fact, a board role is about taking risk. And the question is how much, rather than just avoiding it. Because avoiding it will eventually, if you only concentrate on that, it's going to be very hard for the company to develop in the long run. So let's move into what's inspiring for yourself. What companies are you keeping your eyes on to get a bit of indicators and insights into what's happening?
So I try to have an ear to the ground when it comes to startups. I'm trying to look at pitches and the new things where people are trying out things. And I think that's where you see the trends, because as you also aware of the large companies, there is so many layers of history, and also sometimes stuck there with a lot of technology around it. So you have to live with it. It's really hard to cut it off and just move into a new area. So that's why new startups are so interesting, because they don't have that legacy with them and no backpack with stuff they need to deal with. They can try out things. Not, of course, not all of them will be successful, but it's interesting to see how they, with the new technology out there, take on some old challenges and sometimes newer challenges that's recently showed up.
And is there a particular setting? I do agree that actually following a couple of startups and startup pitches and even invest and try to guide startups is actually a complementary thing to a person in a board portfolio, especially if you are mostly on larger companies, actually, because then you need the contrast and you need to see a bit more how quickly things can happen. So I do agree on that. Is there any other person, leader, podcast that you are inspired by, that you try to follow?
Well, there are so many, so I'm not able to choose one, but I think it's super important to keep yourself updated. As you say, podcast is a very good tool to get there. With these AI tools, I was actually looking for a podcast on a specific topic, and I was looking at it was about a book, and I was looking at Spotify, and I found, I think, 5 podcasts, but all of them was done with this AI 2 persons talking about it. And at least up till now, it's not perfect, I would say. So it's not that good, but it was interesting because I tried one and said, no, not this one, because this is not working. And I went for the next one, and then it was the same. It's amazing what they do, having it set up based on a text to be able to do that kind of podcast. That's super cool. But no, I still go for humans. But I think that is, otherwise you're touching on something else. I think for the future, I think in the digital world, you will never know what you really get. We need to find better cybersecurity, but also in the sense to verify that it's for real. So I think when the tax authority in Sweden approve us to use pictures of our receipts, it's in the same time that you can easily create your own receipts with any AI tool to just generate a picture where you can choose anything. So we run into a problem where it's super nice to automate and simplify things, but that also come with a risk that it's not true. So I think that will be a growing area to be able to verify things.
I totally agree. And also talking about innovation, that's a new area for innovation as well. How do you use AI to work back on cyber, for instance, or on fake news, fake media, fake pictures? You're obviously into that, and I can already see a fair number of tools and approaches. And I think in many of my companies, we wouldn't have been as protected against cyber if we actually didn't use AI to protect us. So it's interesting how it works both ways. What is a practical recommendation that you would give to a board member today to get a bit closer to knowing things that you know?
So I would say stay curious. Try to walk in the shoes of your customer. Try your own products, your own services. Be there. I think that's invaluable to actually have that your own experience.
Yeah.
But be curious and learn as much as you can. I think you never get done with learning, and especially in a new field that will come.
Yeah.
And of course, you can think that, oh, it's technology or it's too advanced. I don't understand how they work, but that's not necessarily the point. The point is that it will change how our customer behaves. It will change simple thing like, I assume energy use will go up as a trend based on this. I assume storage will go up when everyone will do programming, for example. Will you go for standard solutions even? Then you need storage.
Yeah.
So storage will go up. And so you can find trends around you that comes from this technology. And if you go close to it, you will sort of notice more and more things, because so it's not necessarily that you need to know how a neural network works or that you understand it on a detail level or anything, but seeing what trend comes from these changes.
Yeah, and the impact of it that it will have. I think one of the things that I think we haven't really started to discuss as much as we need to, you have, because you're in media, but that is actually the impact on the business model. I think we're more into how can we do it efficient, can we find some new offerings, but actually looking even broader on the business model. Where do you see that, and what recommendation do you have on that?
So I would say experimenting. In the gaming industry, I think we are trying all models and not everything is successful. So I think that's also very important learning, that just because it's not working, it's not necessarily you doing something wrong. You need, in an entrepreneurial mindset, you need to accept that not everything you try out will give you success, but you will get some learnings. And it come back to how your customer behaves, or what is the challenge for your customer? Will it solve the real problem for the customer? Many people have been talking on the old example of Kodak and taking a photo.
Yeah.
It was half the process what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And their target, their goal was to do, we want to do even better cameras. I read some old document they had. They were very ambitious, but they didn't care of the whole process that the customer wanted. You want to take a picture of a moment and you want to share it with friends. So when you can do that, even though the quality is worse, etc., but when you suddenly can do that with a few simple moves with your phone, it's a winner.
Yeah.
So when you have these more disruptive changes in the industry, you need to look out for, are you actually serving your customers' whole problem, or just solving a part of the problem? And I think the one that first gets to solve the whole problem, the whole process that someone wants to handle, they will be the winner.
Well, that's a fantastic way to start to round this up. So if people want to contact you or follow you, how would they best do that?
I think LinkedIn is a good one.
Yeah. So we'll direct that, and we'll also create a little blog post around this so people can find that. Now, I want to end up with a question that brings you a bit out on thinking differently. And that is, if you were a furniture, what would you be?
Ooh. That was a hard one.
Yeah.
A furniture. I think I would like to be a lamp.
A lamp, and tell us why.
No, I love the idea to spread light on things, to be able to share, as I do today, share what I know and what I understand and help people. So a lamp.
That is a fantastic thing. And I will always think about you as a lamp. We will also have the opportunity to listen to you again on a webinar that we're going to hold together with MIT on June 18, where you will be on the panel and discussing the challenge and opportunities of digitally savvy boards. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so
Me
much.
too. Thank you.
So
This was
much.
so lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Exploring Leaders, a podcast produced by Degoshen with the ambition to inspire insightful leadership in the digital age. If you found this episode interesting, join the momentum to amplify the voices of trailblazing leaders by sharing it with others for inspiration. For any questions or recommendations on other inspiring leaders you like to listen to, contact us via our website, degoshen.com, or via social media as LinkedIn or Twitter.
Thank you.